let's go ahead and jump into it. My name is Shauna Duma. I'm the Pueblo of Laguna Public Information Officer with the EOC. I am going to be your moderator for tonight. We are going to go ahead and jump into it with Governor John Antonio Sr. He is going to go ahead and welcome you all to our event. Governor?
Okay, Tower Strava Shop, say hopa. This is Governor John Antonio Sr. And it's great to be here to talk to you about going forward on this COVID-19 pandemic. You know, this is historic times, and of course, first ever in mankind. There's a lot of devastation worldwide, in the United States, in our state of New Mexico, and on our own Pueblo of Laguna homeland. 2020 was a tough year, probably the toughest year that any of us have ever faced. You know, it was very unfortunate. You know, we were seemingly held hostage. We couldn't go a whole lot of places. We were confined to our homes and our yards. Children couldn't go to school in person. It was really a trying time, and unfortunately the most devastating thing was that we lost 18 tribal members. Very sad situation. But of course, you know, we're survivors, and we'll continue to live. By working together, we're going to get through this. And with the onset of the vaccinations, you know, we're going to be opening up a little bit more. Of course, we still have to exercise a lot of precaution. And I'm glad to be here with our members of the Emergency Operations Center, our attorneys from our Government Affairs Department, and other folks that are assisting with this program tonight. We are going to be discussing Amendment number 3 to the executive order. And we have sent that out, and I hope that you have received copies by now. I know we do have a lot of questions, and we're here tonight to clarify all of the information that's out there. And of course, this being the first time we're coming out of this pandemic, there's going to be changes, as you know, on the national news and local news, from CDC, other health departments. There's information that's coming out all the time. And thankfully, you know, we're finally now getting considerations for approvals for vaccinations for 12-year-old children and up. And, you know, through the efforts of our Emergency Operations Center, all our cooperators, our clinics, our hospitals, all our staff, all the law enforcement, everybody, our village officials, we have been successful in curbing the devastation on the impacts of this COVID-19. And I thank everybody for doing your part, getting vaccinated, getting tested, practicing the COVID-safe practices, washing hands, wearing masks, social distancing, and just taking care of yourselves and having concern for your neighbors, your friends, and your employees. And by working together, we're going to survive and we're going to go forward. I look forward to this night. It's exciting. You know, we got some questions that the public have provided to us. We're going to be taking different sections, all our staff here. But again, if you have any questions going forward, you'll be provided the contact information. It's out there, but again, I appreciate everybody participating, and I hope you and your families are doing well. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much, and I turn it back over to Shauna. Thank you.
Thank you, Tapo. So next, we have up our POL Emergency Preparedness and Safety Compliance Manager, Virgil Sile, and he is going to go through the timeline of the pandemic that the Pueblo was in. So Virgil?
I've been asked to provide a brief overview of the timeline of the pandemic and also some information on setting up of the Pueblo of Laguna's Emergency Operations Center. I'll start off with the pandemic. As most of you know, the pandemic originated in China in 2019, and the virus soon made its way over to the United States in January of 2020. So on March 11th, 2020, the virus made it into New Mexico, and then April 27th, 2020 is when the Pueblo of Laguna saw its first cases of the COVID-19 viruses here on the Pueblo. So on March 5th, the Tribal Emergency Response Commission held a meeting to talk about how the Pueblo departments and programs, as well as the Pueblo entities, IHS and others, would work together to address the pandemic. Some items covered in our discussions included opening of the Emergency Operations Center, using the incident management system as the standardized management tool for meeting the demands of the pandemic, declaration of the Pueblo of Laguna state of emergency, prevention measures, PPE supplies for responders and employees, COVID safe practices, how to involve the village officials, public information outreach, testing, quarantine, and isolation of infected individuals and households, and other initiatives to keep the community safe. So right after we learned of the information about the COVID entering our Pueblo lands, the Tribal Emergency Response Committee meeting was called to make recommendations to Governor Herrera for authorizing the opening of the EOC. So that happened that afternoon at 1:30 on March 11th. Governor Herrera did authorize the opening of the EOC. So the partial opening of the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center, was to start gathering as much information as possible about the virus and tracking costs associated with the pandemic. So at this point, several discussions and assignments were made to staff the EOC. One of the first items we needed to do was to name the incident. The name of the incident was called the Pueblo of Laguna COVID-19 operation. So assignments were made to the command staff positions. We have Mr. Chief John Garcia as the incident commander, public information officers Lieutenant Tammy Herrera, and the health ed program manager Shauna Duma. The safety officer is law enforcement Captain Greg Concho, and I serve as the liaison officer. So the next level of assignments include the general staff. So we got Captain Pat Leone as the operations section chief. We have logistics section chiefs Paul Chavez and Mike Manolito, both directors of departments here at the Pueblo. They also have a deputy assigned to them, Ms. Lorene Cercino, the CHR manager. So we also have the planning section chiefs. Former director Brandon Herrera led us off in that area, and then Brandon left us and we turned it over to Ramona Dillard, who is the current planning section's chief. So in the finance section, we have CFO Gina Begay that leads that particular section. So under the current sections, we have several groups that are operating under these sections: contact tracers, food distribution, shelter and testing, pod group, strike teams, and homebound clients, and others that I may have missed. So weekly meetings are held so that all of these participants can keep up to date on situational reports and various initiatives that these groups are undertaking. So all the programs and Pueblo entities, federal agencies, have done a great job in helping our community stay safe. So we're currently putting together a demobilization plan that will take effect hopefully in the near future. We pray that all of this will go away soon or end soon, and we ask for your continued support for getting us through this pandemic. So that's all the time I have now, and I'm going to turn it back over to Mrs. Shauna Duma. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sile. We appreciate that breakdown. Next, we're going to go ahead and talk with our Government Affairs Department, one of our lawyers, James Burson. He's going to go over the timeline and the purpose of our executive orders that have been issued in the past. So, Mr. James Burson.
Good evening, Laguna communities. Thank you for attending this presentation. So I'm going to cover the 4 executive orders that have been issued over time and kind of explain how they evolved and what their effects were. On March 20th last year, Pueblo Governor Herrera declared that a public health emergency existed for the Pueblo of Laguna due to the presence of COVID-19 and its threat to the community. The Pueblo Council authorized Governor Herrera to make such a declaration of public emergency under the Pueblo's Emergency Operations Plan, which the Council had adopted by Resolution number 8-20 on February 28th, 2020. Within a few days of Council's adoption of the revised and updated Emergency Operations Plan, Governor Herrera activated the Emergency Operations Center to begin planning and coordinating activities to respond to the predicted threats posed by the approaching COVID-19 pandemic. The declaration of emergency contained initial directives to Pueblo residents and its employees to begin responding to the growing pandemic. The Emergency Operations Plan and the declaration form the legal foundation for issuance of the 4 executive orders that I will briefly cover. These 4 orders evolved to address the changing conditions presented by the pandemic. The original executive order, issued on April 8th, closed the Pueblo to non-residents and outside visitors and closed non-essential businesses. It directed Pueblo residents to stay at home, but made a handful of exceptions for persons to access essential employment, services, and goods. The April 8th order also established a nightly curfew, 6-foot social distancing, and indoor gathering limits of 5 persons to decrease the exposure to the virus. Then during June, because of improving COVID-19 conditions, the first amended executive order relaxed the strict closure and stay-at-home rules, reduced the curfew to just weekend nights, and allowed the Pueblo buildings to reopen to the public to visit by appointment. Notably, Route 66 Casino was allowed to reopen after being closed for 100 days. And many other businesses were also allowed to open their operations under COVID-safe precautions. The order retained the previously established COVID safety rules of 6-foot distancing, gathering limits, but added a face mask requirement for all persons in a public setting in order to conform to recently required medical recommendations. Also added was a mandate to stay at home or isolate if you were exposed to or tested positive for COVID-19, including provisions for the Pueblo Court to enforce compliance and to impose consequences for violation of the executive order. Then, due to a November surge in COVID infections, the second amended executive order issued in November 23rd reinstituted many of the directives of the original order, such as Pueblo closure, staying at home directives, and nightly curfews. It closed tribal buildings to the public, prohibited most non-essential business activities, and limited resident and outsider activities to accessing essential employment, goods, and services. Based upon a large percentage of the community and Pueblo employees now being vaccinated against COVID-19, combined with the lower infection rates, the third executive order issued by Governor Antonio on April 23rd reflects these improvements. It removes many of the restrictions on activities of residents who reside in COVID-vaccinated households, which includes allowing students in vaccinated households to attend school and participate in organized sports. However, Residents of households where one or more persons are eligible for vaccination but remain unvaccinated must continue to stay at home except for essential activities allowed under the November order. While the order still requires everyone to wear a mask in public, social distancing has been reduced to only 3 feet and curfew is limited only to weekend nights. The latest order recognizes that COVID-19 is still a health risk to the unvaccinated, and most of whom are the children. The Pueblo's emergency operations team is certain that the best way to deal with the continuing COVID threat now is by having as many people as possible vaccinated. That's the update for the executive orders, and I'll turn it back over to Shauna. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burson. So once again, community, if you are following along, you can find the executive order, a copy of that on our website at Pueblo of Laguna. Actually, www.lagunapueblo-nsn.gov. Or you can go ahead and contact your village official. They also have hard copies. If you have not received one, please reach out to them. Before we get into the meat of the executive order, we just want to give a full disclosure that some of our speakers are going to go through these sections, which are pretty lengthy, but they are going to point out some of the key points in the executive order. If you, again, want to find out the full executive order, the wording within it, please go to the Pueblo of Laguna website, or you can contact the EOC. Up next, we have our EOC Incident Commander, Chief John Garcia, and he's going to go ahead and give us an introduction into the Executive Order Amendment number 3.
Good evening. Thank you all for attending this meeting. I think this is something that's past something that we should have thought about way back when this pandemic started, to really get the information out to the community on exactly what this pandemic what it's done and what we continue to do to fight this virus. So today, why are we here? Why are we looking at a change for the executive order? The reason we're looking at it is because of you, the community, the members that live here within the Pueblo. Without your support, without you being part of the solution by testing, getting vaccinated, social distancing, working together as a community, and helping with the EOC guidelines, that's why we're here today. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, but also for all the hard work that you've done. We couldn't have done this alone. So right now, what's really made the efforts work is that as of right now, we've tested 16,000 times and we've vaccinated 7,500 different levels, and that means that at this point we're about 85% of the Pueblo being fully vaccinated. What is the amended order? The amended order is basically the law of the Pueblo. This is what we all fall within the EOC and the community, and that's how we dictate on how we deal with all the different variants of issues that we deal with. This, if it is violated, it is subject to criminal prosecution and civil damages. But again, understanding that this is the law, I still have to say that I really want to thank the community for their hard work, and I want to thank everybody for getting us here today. This is a good time. It's not the time to let our guard down, but we've really been able to curb this virus, and I think if we continue working hard, we'll really get to the point where we can get back to some sense of normalcy. But thank you, and I'll pass it back on to Shauna.
Thank you, Chief. So up next, we are going to welcome our EOC lead contact tracer, Lieutenant Tammy Herrera, and she's going to go ahead and give you a little bit of definitions that are currently being used in this order. So, Lieutenant Herrera.
So today I'm going over the definitions as they are listed in the Executive Order number 3, Amendment number 3. Fully vaccinated means that the person in question has received the complete series of COVID-19 vaccinations recommended by the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC, including any recommended booster vaccinations, and that 14 days have passed since completion of the recommended series. An example of that is you having your first dose, second dose, and then 14 days later would make you fully vaccinated. Fully vaccinated household means a household in which all household members eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccination have been fully vaccinated. So an example of that is all the adults within the household that are able to get the vaccine have received the vaccine. Eligible, which is the next definition, means a person who meets CDC criteria for receiving a COVID-19 vaccination and who has not obtained a statement from a medical professional that inoculation of the person in question is not medically recommended. So eligible means any adults that are healthy enough to receive the vaccination in a household have received the vaccination. An unvaccinated household means a household that includes a person eligible for the COVID-19 vaccination who has not been fully vaccinated. So there's maybe 5 adults in a household and only 4 out of the 5 are vaccinated. That would make that household unvaccinated. That's all I have right now. Back to Shauna. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Herrera. So up next, we're going to go ahead and shoot back over to Chief John Garcia. He's going to reinstate the rules for COVID safe practices. And if you're following along in the executive order, that's going to be 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Chief?
Thank you, Shauna. So what I want to do is kind of go over what the COVID safe practices are. So we all know that there's CDC guidance, New Mexico Department of Health guidance, but here within the Pueblo, the executive order is what dictates what we do here within the Pueblo. So currently our COVID safe practices are everybody must wear a mask. It has to either be a two-ply cloth mask, a surgical mask, or a KN95. The biggest tool we have other than the vaccination is the masks. When it comes down to protecting you, yourselves, your families and others, the mask is the most important. And that's the one that the CDC is really pushing at this point. Then we talk about social distancing. Right now we've reduced our social distancing to 3 feet outside of your home. So once you leave the confines of your home, 3 feet is the minimum that you need to stay from others as you're outside. At the same time, you need to continue to wear your mask at all times. The CDC does allow for a lot of other types of restrict or non-restrictions, but again, remember that the CDC is guidance and the Pueblo does not completely follow the complete guidance from the CDC. For the reason is based on the size of the community and the restrictions within the confines of the community itself. Now, I have to really say this. It's important if we want to get past this. Wear your mask, continue your social distancing, continue to use your sanitizers. Even though we're in a good place today, we have to keep vigilant and we have to continue doing what we're doing if we want to get back to what we were about a year and 2 months ago. So really take it serious. Do everything you can to protect the family. Right now, the biggest issue for us is the kids. And so everything that we do when it comes to COVID safe practices is about the kids. The other issue that we have is the curfew. The curfew used to be Monday through Sunday, but because of the due diligence of the community, we're allowing the curfews to be minimized only to Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. What that means is starting on Friday at 10 o'clock to the next morning at 5, Saturday and Sunday, basically those are the curfew hours. Monday through Thursday, there are no curfew hours. That means that there are no restrictions for travel or leaving your home unless you're in a home that is not completely vaccinated. If you're not completely vaccinated, the old executive order actually applies to that household, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, we're in a good place. We've done a lot of work, but let's not let our guard down. Let's keep working hard. Let's wear our masks, Let's do our social distancing, let's get vaccinated, and let's make sure that we continue to use our sanitizer. And I'll turn it back to Shauna.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, really quickly, if you can stay there, we do have a question that came in from community. And if you are watching here and listening, we did have about a week's time for community to submit any questions they had about the executive order. Going through this order, if you still have any questions or need more clarification, please feel free to email us at covidinfo@pol-nsn.gov. We'll put that information up at the end of this live event. But Chief, the question that came in for you, and this pertains to the Section 1. CDC guidance doesn't require us to wear a face mask if we are vaccinated. Why do we still have to keep wearing them here?
Okay. Thank you for that question, Shauna. So again, remembering that CDC guidance is guidance. It's something that the federal government has decided works for the majority of the country. But unfortunately, we have to look at the size of the community that we live in and how the close proximity of homes and how close-knit some of the families are. We have to continue to use masks. The guidance right now from the CDC does allow for some people that are fully vaccinated within their homes not to wear masks if they're all vaccinated and they're from one family. Currently, that would stand within the Pueblo, but the minute you leave your home, the mask mandate is effective. So you always have to wear a mask no matter where you are outside of your home within the Pueblo. And again, it's the executive order that dictates that mask wearing, not the CDC, not the New Mexico Department of Health or other agencies. It's all based on our community.
Thank you, Chief. So again, if you'd like to submit a question to the EOC for clarification, please feel free to reach out to us. You can either call us or submit your questions via the comments section. Up next, we're going to go ahead and go back to our EOC lead contact tracer, Lieutenant Tammy Herrera. She's going to go ahead and review 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6, talking about fully vaccinated households, unvaccinated households, and non-residents.
Okay, hi everybody, again. So 1.5 in the amended order number 3, unvaccinated households. Basically, we went over the definition earlier. Members of unvaccinated households are required to stay home except for essential activities under section 2.5.2, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Members of unvaccinated households are prohibited from attending school in person, participating in organized sports or extracurricular activities, traveling outside the Pueblo, except for essential activities defined in section 2.5, conducting food or arts and craft sales, participating in senior center activities beyond meal pickup, or residing at or visiting the Laguna Rainbow Center without approval of the EOC. We'll go into that a little bit more in section 2.5. Any member of an unvaccinated household, including any child who tests positive as a COVID-19 symptom, has been in close contact with somebody unvaccinated or who has tested positive for COVID-19 or is awaiting test results, as requested by the EOC, must stay home and be isolated at all times until cleared by the EOC. This kind of goes back to what Chief just said about if you're a member of an unvaccinated household, you are going to be required to kind of stay under the old stay-at-home order. Members of unvaccinated households are prohibited from gathering inside or outside, except with other members of their own household, or for essential activities. This section applies to all members of a household that includes anyone who is eligible for a vaccine but has not been fully vaccinated. So as we discussed earlier, if you're not a part of a vaccinated household, then you're still under the old stay-at-home order. Now the fully vaccinated households, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped down a little bit. Fully vaccinated households have been given a little bit more leeway in this new amended order. And it's kind of because we are seeing better guidance or new guidance from CDC that we're trying to mirror at this time as well in the Pueblo. Members of fully vaccinated households may participate in family and other gatherings as follows. Outside, as long as all those present comply with all other COVID-safe practices in Section 1, including wearing face masks and maintaining physical distance and subject to compliance with EOC guidelines. Inside gatherings in compliance with EOC guidelines. Any member of a fully vaccinated household who has COVID-19 symptoms is required to stay home or be isolated from the community until cleared by the EOC. And that's if you are displaying symptoms.
We have several questions that came in from community. First question is, do I need to carry my vaccination card with me?
I would recommend carrying your vaccine card with you. I know it gets lost, sometimes you forget, it's kind of hard to remember sometimes, so if you can, it would probably make your life easier if somebody were to ask you for it, especially like your village officials. So if you can, I would carry it, but it's not like mandatory. It's just going to make your life a little bit easier.
Thank you. And our second question is, I lost my vaccination card. Where can I get a new one?
If you lose your vaccination card and you live here in the Pueblo, you may contact myself, or you can contact Ramona Dillard, and we will both be able to get you a new card.
Thank you. And our third question, how many people can be at a gathering if all are vaccinated?
So this is a discussion we had, and we're still kind of trying to work with some of the venues here in the Pueblo, but what we came up with for the gathering numbers or limits would be outside, up to 50 is okay, as long as everybody in the gathering is vaccinated. That's eligible to be vaccinated. So up to 50. Anything over 50 outside in an event needs to get approval from EOC. Inside our indoor gatherings, if it's at a home, just based on the sizes of most of the homes we have around here, we decided that anything from 16 to 20 people is okay, making sure, of course, that all members or all people in attendance are vaccinated, that are eligible for vaccination. Inside gatherings for larger venues, we are going to go by the capacity limit within that building, and then a percentage of that. But for any events that are going to be happening indoors in any of the venues across the Pueblo, those will need to be approved by the EOC.
Thank you, Tammy. Our next question pertaining to this section is, I live out of state but want to come home to visit family on the Pueblo. Am I allowed to visit now?
Yes, so this was one of my favorite parts of this, because I have a lot of family members that live out of state and off the Pueblo. And so this would allow you now to come home if you are fully vaccinated and if the household you're going to visit is fully vaccinated as well.
Thank you. Next question. I'm a tribal member wanting to move back home to reside on the Pueblo. Can I come back home now?
And it's kind of the same thing. If you're coming back and you're going to be living with somebody, make sure that you first are fully vaccinated. And remember, fully vaccinated means both doses of your vaccine plus 14 days. And then make sure that the home you're moving back to, if anybody lives there now, make sure that they're fully vaccinated as well.
Thank you. And our last question is, I'm a college student living on campus, but I'm ready to come home for break. Is there a process I need to follow?
And this is the same thing. It's kind of across the board. If you're coming home as a college student, hopefully you are fully vaccinated. We have extended our vaccination efforts to Pueblo or tribal members who don't live here in the Pueblo, and we have had a lot come home just to get vaccinated, including a lot of college students that came back to get vaccinated. So hopefully you're fully vaccinated and the household you're coming back to is fully vaccinated as well.
Thank you, Tammy. That is all the questions we have.
Thank you, Shauna.
All right, up next, we're going to go back to Chief John Garcia, and he's going to go ahead and give us an update on COVID-19 vaccinations for 12 to 15-year-olds. Chief?
Thank you, Shauna. So I think everybody is starting to see the key tonight. The key and the tool that we have in the toolkit is vaccination. So in order to really be able to move about within the Pueblo and really across the United States is to get vaccinated. So right now we have some good news. Currently, it looks like Pfizer may be able to get their approval from the FDA sometime next week. They did request the approval back April 9th of 2021. And if this actually takes place, working with our partners with ACL and others, we'll be able to start vaccinating the kids 12 to 15, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. There was 2,200 kids that participated in the study, and what they found as 100% of those participants actually were 100% protected by the Pfizer vaccine. So that tells us that this vaccine is very effective for kids, even more so than the 16 to 25-year-olds, which was about 95%. So the good thing is, as the time goes by, we're starting to see that the vaccines are getting better and better. They're starting to be able to manage some of the variants that we're dealing with. So again, the key to getting back to what we used to do is going to be vaccination. And with this new 12 to 15-year-old vaccine, we'll be able to take care of more here within the Pueblo, get them back to school, and get them back to do what they used to do, so they could become, portions of what we used to have. Have the kids be able to go out and be with their friends and with their family and see their grandmothers and grandparents. So at the end, this is a good thing. This is really good news. So once we do get the clarification, we will make sure that we get the vaccination out to the kids as soon as possible. Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you, Chief. And again, for more information about the vaccinations for the 12 to 15-year-olds, stay in touch with us on our Facebook, also our social media, YouTube, our POL website, and if you're not already signed up for our emergency notification system, please do so at our Pueblo of Laguna website. Next, we're going to go back to Governor John Antonio Sr. He's going to go through restrictions for all. Again, if you're following along, that'll be 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. Governor?
Okay, hello again. Good to be back. Got a lot of good information that you have heard so far. So I'm going to be talking about Section 2 regarding the restrictions. And of course, this is during curfew. And of course, Mr. Garcia already touched on the curfew hours, but there are certain things that you can still do during the curfew, okay? So one of the things is that you can continue to conduct or perform Pueblo government operations or still provide services. For example, the police officers can still do their duties. Social services sometimes gets called out at different hours in the midnight, whatever, so they can still do that. The village officials, they have calls, emergencies that they need to attend to, they can do that. Also employment. I know some people work the swing or either the graveyard shift, so they can travel back and forth to work during those curfew hours. Also, if you're a farmer, I know sometimes irrigation, you don't get your water till midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning, so you can still do that. Also ranching. There's a lot of cowboys and cowgirls around here, so maybe your cow or your horse bucked you off, you had to go get it, and it took you a long time. You finally found it at 2 a.m. in the morning, that you can continue doing that. Hunting and fishing likewise. I know it's good to get out there, get your good campsite, find that turkey roost, get that nice spot for fishing, and start casting there when the sun comes up. But anyway, those are activities that are allowed. Also, sometimes we have medical issues. We don't know. Sometimes middle of the night, you might get a stomach ache or something. And so you got to go seek medical services. So that's allowable even during the curfew hours. Also, mental health issues. A lot of stress going on during this COVID activity time. So again, if you need some help, you feel anxious or something, yeah, you can go travel to the doctor to get that help. Also, we have provisions for child, family, and elder care or assistance. Sometimes We have the social services. They have different orders that to follow. The parents might have joint custody, so they can get the child maybe to mom or dad or to the grandparents anytime during that curfew time. Also for our elder care, we need to go to another village because grandma got sick or something, or the auntie needs help. So you can get up in the middle of the night and go do that during the curfew hours. Also, there's emergency vehicle. We never know. We trust that our vehicle is going to get us from point A to point B, but we never know. We might get a flat and we don't have a spare, and we're out getting wood, and we have to walk all the way back home, and it might take us till 3 a.m. in the morning, but yeah, during that time. Also for vehicle repair, you can take it into the shop, get it fixed anytime. Same way with home repair. You never know when your water heater might go out any time in the summer, whatever. Maybe your gas range or whatever, your heater might go out in the winter time. So yes, you can continue to get services during that time. So.
Thank you, Governor. And we do have 2 questions that came in for this section. Our first question, can we leave the Pueblo earlier than 5 a.m. if we're hunting? Yes,
that's a good time to get out there before the sun rises, so yes, you can.
Thank you. And our second question, I live off the reservation. Do I need to be vaccinated to hunt on the Pueblo?
Yes, you do. And as was mentioned, it's always good to have your card. You never know. Sometimes, places that you go, they may require a card. We may decide to do that when we open our office here. But yes, you can travel early. So.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
That's all the questions.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. And up next, we're going to go to EOC Liaison Michael Manuelito. He is going to go through the stay-at-home order for members of unvaccinated households. Again, if you're following our executive order, that's going to be 2.5. Mr. Manuelito.
Today I'm going to talk about 2.5, stay-at-home order for members of unvaccinated household. This only pertains to you if you are considered an unvaccinated household. You shall remain within your home and your yard with exception for essential travel or day outdoor activities described in section 2.5.2. Traveling inside and outside the Pueblo is prohibited unless gathering essentials such as groceries, cleaning supplies, personal hygiene products, and essential services. Checking on elders, family, community members in need of assistance. Essential employee determined by the place of employment. Picking up medication and other medical necessities. Picking up a senior or a child lunch at designated locations, but using CSPs. Complying with child custody or visitation agreements. Outside travel for this will require EOC approval with supporting documentation.
Thank you. And Michael, we did have a question come in from community. That first question was in 4.3.1, children going back to in-person school. But in 4.5 to 4.6, school within the Pueblo shall remain closed. Why is this?
Well, at this time, the guidance for the LDOE board and Pueblo staff and council, the schools within the jurisdiction of the Pueblo were to remain closed for the rest of the 2020-21 school year. So this order does say that they can reopen June 1st. So after June 1st, they can reopen in-school services.
And we have one more question.
Sure.
Why are the roads still closed off in villages?
The village closed down their roads based on safety and protection of their people. They acted in their own capacity as village officials and the keepers of the village. The OC assisted in providing barricades and placement as requested by the villages. That can be asked by your individual village meetings or with your village officials independently of this order. So it's up to you to decide to ask your village officials if you shall open up your roads again.
All right, again, if you are following along, if you haven't received your copy of your executive order, hard copy, please head to the Pueblo of Laguna website, contact the EOC, or reach out to your village official. We are going to go ahead and stay with Mr. Michael Manuelito, and he's going to go ahead and move along in our next section, 2.6.
Hello, everybody. 2.6, travel outside the Pueblo. Vaccinated. You can travel inside New Mexico utilizing CSPs. CSP stands for COVID Safe Practices. You can travel outside New Mexico utilizing CSPs. When you return, if you should have one or more symptoms, you will be required to stay at home in quarantine with your family until cleared with the EOC. Now, if you're unvaccinated, there is no traveling outside the Pueblo except for essential activities. If you do travel outside the Pueblo regularly, we highly recommend maintaining a COVID testing cycle with you and your family at least once a month. If you must travel outside New Mexico for essential activities, you must contact the EOC and comply with requirements, post-travel testing, and household quarantine. All right, I'll give it back to you, Shauna.
Thank you, Mr. Manuelito. So up next, we are going to go back to Chief John Garcia. He's going to go through Section 3, which is the business operations. Again, full disclosure. This is a pretty long section, so we're going to point out some key pointers here. So, Chief.
Thank you, Shauna. So as part of the Executive Order number 3, a resolution was attached, and that resolution required all of Pueblo of Laguna governments and entities to be vaccinated and test on a regular basis. This is something that affects each and every one of our entities, from the Laguna Rainbow, LDC, the Department of Education, the Utility Authority, housing, all the different agencies that we have within the Pueblo. The reasoning behind that was the only way we can be safe and make sure that we're protecting each other and protecting the kids is to make sure that the employees themselves were protected. And so that was an instrumental part of the Executive Order number 3, is to ensure that vaccination was taken care of. Now, talking a little bit about government, the way basically the way it runs is when it comes to the businesses. For the casinos, for Laguna Rainbow, and all the different businesses that we have within the Pueblo, the Emergency Operations Center works side by side to help them with COVID safe practices, testing, vaccination, and basically if they do have some kind of case, either a positive or suspected positive case, our contact tracers will work directly with them. Each and every one of our entities has a mini EOC that we meet with on a regular basis to ensure that we're putting proper guidelines together for these businesses. So when it comes to the big portions, the big businesses, this is how we determine if it's acceptable for, like, say, 66 to start opening up additional venues. The EOC will work with LDC, help put a guidance document together, and bring that document to council and the governor for approval. So it's a three-pronged type process to ensure that we're not just saying it's okay to open without having a process behind that. And so that will be how we continue to move forward, working with all of our entities and with the Pueblo of Laguna government. The difference with the government itself, we're currently working on a return to work guideline, exactly in how we're going to work with the community and how we're going to work with each other as employees. So those are the big things that are taking place today with the businesses. But I think the one that probably is more important, the question I hear a lot is, can we sell? Right now you can sell if you meet certain criteria. You have to make sure you're fully vaccinated. You have to make sure you have village official approval, and that you have to follow the processes of permitting, licensing, and all the different things through the Pueblo. So when it comes to operation and getting business back to normal, it's a process, and it's not just something that we take, it's not the issue of money's more important than life. But at the same time, we have to make sure that our entities are functioning and moving forward. So we have to make sure that we ensure that these businesses are working efficiently, and that the Pueblo government is able to meet with constituents and provide the service that we're here for. And so that's all I have. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Chief. And we did have questions come in from community. The first question is the testing for employees going to stay the same with the new executive order?
Thank you, Shauna. As of right now, this will be an item that is discussed with the governor with the return to work document. Again, the return to work document is a document that will help to guide the employees when they come back to work. A lot of employees have been working from remotely, working from different locations, and the entire staff has been staggered. With the return to work, we hope to get a majority of the employees back to their normal workplaces and kind of get the government back to where it used to be. So that'll be a discussion item for the future.
Thank you, Chief. And the next question, can I start selling food again in the Pueblo?
Yes, and I kind of answered that a little bit, but yes. Again, you have to follow the processes. The first one is to make sure that you get village official approval. You have to make sure you're fully vaccinated, so you'll have to show your card, and that you have to follow the permitting and licensing through the public government. But again, with this executive order, we're relaxing it because of the vaccination, because it's time to start getting things back to normal. So that is one of the things that we want to assist the community to get back to being able to function and provide for their families.
Okay, again, if you're following along, thank you for jumping on to our Facebook Live as we're going through the Executive Order Amendment number 3. We are going to go ahead and continue to move on with EOC Liaison Michael Manuelito. He is going to go through the children in schools, which is section 4. Mr. Manuelito.
Children in schools. This will pertain to households who are considered fully vaccinated. Parents may allow their children to return to school for in-person learning, organized sports, and extracurricular activities. Parents must register with the EOC, and the children establish a monthly COVID testing cycle. All households must monitor themselves for any COVID symptoms and get tested in an event as symptoms appear. Now, this is going to pertain to households who are considered unvaccinated. Children will only be allowed remote learning. Children will not be allowed to participate in organized sports and/or extracurricular activities. Schools located within the Pueblo jurisdiction will reopen for in-person attendance beginning June 1st.
Thank you. So we are going to go ahead and move on to section 5, village officials.
Hello again. Number 5, village officials. Duties of the village officials will work with the EOC and the Pueblo of Laguna law enforcement for investigations and/or actions. Village officials are to observe, monitor, and report any activities that are not in compliance with this executive order. Village meetings and activities can resume, but village officials have the authority to set requirements and ask for proof of vaccinations. CSPs should be followed.
Thank you, Mr. Manuelito. And we did have one question come in from community. This question is, will Merumos and EOC be on the same page when the Merumos start to enforce this issue, the executive order?
Yes, the EOC does work with village officials on a weekly basis, providing information and updates. There will always be a line of communication to any EOC command staff and the 6 villages. The EOC will always be available to provide guidance and interpretation of the orders and its amendments. We meet with them weekly in our SIT reps. We do have council reps, staff officers, and some animals that attend. So at any time, they can ask any questions or comments, concerns at that time, or reach us anytime they want.
Thank you, Mr. Manuelito. And again, if you're following along on our Facebook and Zoom accounts, thank you. If you would like to view the executive order and don't have a hard copy in hand, you can go to the Pueblo of Laguna website or contact your village official. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on. We're going to throw it back to our Lieutenant Tammy Herrera. She's going to go over Section 6, Passing of Membership.
So, passing of membership, an unfortunate thing we have to deal with here in the Pueblo. Section number 6, attendance at wakes and burials will be limited to individuals who are fully vaccinated or who have permission from religious and village officials. All attendees must adhere to COVID safe practices in Section 1. Arrangements with respective village officials and cultural leadership will be permitted and are encouraged to be in compliance with COVID safe practices.
Thank you. So again, moving along, if you're following with us, if you are a tribal member or resident of the Pueblo of Laguna and you have questions or need clarifications on this new executive order, amendment number 3, please feel free to reach out to the EOC. You can call us at 505-328-5682, or either you can message us on our Facebook page, or email us at covidinfo@pol-nsn.gov. Moving along, we're going to go back to EOC Liaison Michael Manuelito. He is going to cover Section 7, Traditional and Religious Activities and Notification. Mr. Manuelito.
All right, thank you, Shauna. Number 7, or Section 7, Traditional and Religious Activities and Notification. Encouragement of all precautions should be considered and understood. Community safety, protection, and the well-being should be ensured for all the people. House of worship may hold services and other functions, but shall work with EOC for guidance on occupancy and levels of operations. Religious leaders may require proof of vaccination status, which means pastors, priests, anybody that works within our religious leaders, our traditional leadership, can ask you for vaccination status. And also, houses of worship means that the churches will be working with the EOC for occupancy and levels of operations. And they should be reaching out to us for any questions they have.
Thank you. So again, we're going to go ahead and if you did receive a copy of the executive order, you should see that it came with the executive order grid. We are going to go ahead and review that with Incident Commander Chief John Garcia.
Thank you, Shauna. So when we put this executive order together, working with council and the governor, we wanted to make sure that we had a simple guide to go through. Going through some of these documents can be pretty lengthy and in some cases confusing. Even for us, when we read our own documents, you think about, oh, this is what I wanted to say, and it doesn't always say what you wanted to say. So what we tried to do is to simplify what the order means by putting together this. And basically what this is it's a guide to something that's specific to the order. So in this case, if I want to know if I need to be tested, the guide would basically say, it says testing, if you're a vaccinated household, only if you have symptoms. If you're a non-vaccinated household, you have to be tested. So what this is just a quick guideline of all the different things that we felt were important to this order that you'd be able to just do a quick reference and be able to answer the question. Almost like a pocket guide, something you could carry with you and check to see, can I go out of state? If you're vaccinated, you can, applying CSPs, which are COVID safe practices. If you're not vaccinated, you could not, and because you would go back or resort to the old order. So the idea was, again, to make it simple. We even put some phone numbers on here. We talked about the curfew and just in general some resource information that's within the Pueblo guidelines. So we hope that this works good for everybody. It will be online, and also if you'd like to contact the EOC, we could send it to you through email, or you can come to the EOC and pick up a copy. But I just want to thank everybody again for participating in this. And really, again, this is all about you. This is about you following the guidelines and the testing and all the different things we've done is why we're here today. So again, thank you for everything that you've done. Shauna, back to you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, moving along in our executive order. We are here at our last section of the EO. We are going to review this section. It's general COVID safe practices to adhere to and other. We are going to review this with EOC Operations Captain Patrick Leon. Mr. Leon.
As all of you know, we're living in a COVID-19 world now, COVID positive world, and there's certain things we need to do or continue to do. I know that we continually talk about CSPs. What we need you to do is Continue to do your CSPs. This is going to protect you, your family, and help keep the community safe. And it's also going to help us do our part in helping keep the COVID-19 spread to a manageable level. All right, some of the things we need you to do. In general, stay at home, avoid unnecessary travel. And when you do travel, if you make those decisions to travel, make sure you make good decisions on where you're going to travel to. Okay, always stay at home when you're sick, except for medical emergencies. If you break your hand, break your leg, break your heart, well, maybe you need to go to the hospital. Okay, call EMS. If it's something that you're not too sure about, maybe you got the little sniffles, think you got a cold, call up your primary care physician or call up the clinic. Be guided by their advice. Okay, if you've been exposed or you believe you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19, make sure you get a test. And Shauna, our PIO, continues to put out on ENS when and where we're having testing. And typically it's going to be at the Mesita PSD. Get vaccinated. Carry your vaccination card with you. That thing's, I guess you could say, like the Willy Wonka gold card. Okay. Other suggestions: laminate it or take a picture of it on your phone. Okay, wear a face covering. Okay, I know these things are or can get bothersome. I mean, if you notice when I came up here, I was glistening a little bit because it is hot. These things get hot. It's going to be getting summer, and yes, they do get a little bothersome. But just remember, they're not a forehead mask. They're not a chin mask. They're a face mask. Make sure they cover your nose and cover your mouth. That's what you need to use these to filter out the virus. Okay, wash your hands thoroughly and frequently. Okay, this is your justification for those of you that like to sing in the bathroom. Okay, we teach the kids, sing 2 choruses of the birthday song, right? So, you want to sing, go in the bathroom, wash your hands. They yell at you and say, "What are you doing in there?" You can yell back and say, "I'm washing my hands," and singing. Okay, avoid touching your eyes, your nose, and your mouth with unwashed hands. Those are routes that viruses can travel into your body. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue, cough, cough, and then throw the tissue away. I know if you don't have a tissue, you can cough into your elbow. Once you're done, take and throw your elbow in the trash. Also, I'm just kidding. Make sure that you wash that particular blouse or shirt or whatever you cough into. All right, clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces and objects. Now this next one, watch for COVID-19 symptoms. Fever, cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, headache, muscle pain, loss of taste or smell, chills, repeated shaking with chills. If you think you have any of these symptoms, make sure that you get tested. And again, like I said, our PIO will list the places where you can get tested per the EOC. Okay, if you must leave the Pueblo, make sure you adhere to the New Mexico guidance on being in public places and accessing businesses. Wear your face mask. While in public, keep your 6-foot distancing from other people. Try to avoid crowds and sanitize after touching any surface or individuals. And if you notice on the link, you will see where you can look for information or your COVID-19 information line. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Captain Leon. Next, we're going to go ahead and go through your executive order. There is an Appendix A to the Executive Order Amendment number 3. We are going to go with our Government Affairs Department, Mr. Kip Barbaroff, who is going to review the emergency public health measures to detain, quarantine, and isolate. Mr. Barbaroff.
Good evening. One of the reasons that the Pueblo has done so well during this COVID-19 pandemic has been the investment that it made in contact tracing and the commitment of the residents of the Pueblo of Laguna to comply with the executive orders. But we have recognized that not everyone always complies. And so there has been a process that is detailed in Appendix A that provides a balance between the due process rights of an individual and the Pueblo's interest and the importance of making sure that these rules of the executive order are followed. So in the event that somebody is not following these rules and the EOC receives a referral, for example, if somebody who is not vaccinated has tested positive, contact tracers will reach out to that person and explain to them that they and their household have to quarantine. In the event that they don't comply with that on the EOC contact tracers request, at that point, there's a process by which the EOC takes a referral. They have information that a household is not complying. It's reviewed by the Government Affairs Office. There's an application. We determine whether there in fact is probable cause to believe that someone is violating the order, or the request rather. And if they are, the EOC issues an order in writing to the person and that household to quarantine or isolate. In the event that that person does not comply, then there are consequences that may take the form of a citation or criminal or civil charges of trespass. Now, on the other hand, if someone thinks this is unfair and that they're not being treated, their rights are not being respected, they have the right to go to the Pueblo court and go before the Pueblo judge and have the case against them considered by a neutral party. And the reason that the Pueblo has adopted this and that it's included in the appendix to the executive order is that the Pueblo believes that it is important to balance the health and safety of the entire community against the rights of the individual. And we think this process is a way to balance those two interests. We always hope that this is not necessary, and that, as has happened in the past, the overwhelming number of people, members of this community, are going to continue acting to protect each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barbroff. Thank you all who are on our Facebook Live, and also those who may still be on Zoom. And again, this whole recording will be uploaded onto our POL YouTube page. If you do have any questions or need clarifications on the executive order, please send them to our Pueblo of Laguna email, covidinfo@pol-nsn.gov. You can call the EOC hotline or let your village official know, and they can get in touch with us. All questions or clarifications that are submitted to the EOC will be reviewed, answered, and submitted to the June Kukatsa, or the town crier, so that way everybody can see their questions being answered by the EOC. So moving along into our closing, we are going to go ahead and end with Governor John Antonio Sr., who is going to give some closing words to our community.
Well, thank you all again for joining us. It was a great honor and privilege to have all of you join us on this YouTube and Zoom and other social media. We apologize for the few hiccups we had, but again, we'll make improvements going forward to make sure that we have connections all around. But with that, though, I feel this was a very successful time, and I thank all of the staff from EOC, the GAD, and my governor's office, and we have council up here too. But thank you very much, all of you, for participating, especially the Hanu, the people. This was for your benefit. This was to inform you of all the different changes in this executive order, amendment number 3. Again, if you have any questions, because this is a learning process. This is a working document, and of course, as conditions change, so will these different regulations and these different practices. So please stay tuned. EOC has a great website, They have a lot of great information. And again, the whole purpose is to benefit our community. So I encourage you all to get your vaccinations. As you see, we're open up a little bit more. I look forward to that day when we don't have to wear our masks, when we can give each a regular handshake, give each other a hug, and just visit like pre-COVID days. And so with that, I thank all of you. Again, you be safe. You take care of each other. And remember, we love you all, and we're very concerned about your safety and well-being. And this is why we have all these different orders, rules, and regulations. So please consider that. We care about you. So with that, Naistia use Travamatsani. Sacha next to Sehopa. Bashus ko omani hawenu. Waheme.
Thank you, Governor Antonio, and thank you to our EOC command staff who is here to provide the review of the Executive Order Amendment number 3. In the order, but there was a couple key points that were pointed out, and we just wanted to remind community for one big one, with the Pueblo of Laguna Behavioral Health Services, they do have a mental health helpline. So again, we know this is stressful time, so if you are needing that help, please give our behavioral health services a call. They can be reached at 552-5660. And they also included a text line. So if you don't feel like calling but you want to text, please call 505-917-0792. They are 24/7, so please give them a call. In addition, we have our Pueblo of Laguna EOC COVID-19 testing and vaccinations that are going to be put together come May 11th. This is going to be located at the Public Safety Complex. The COVID-19 testing and vaccinations are going to run from Tuesday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. They are going to be closed on Saturday and Sunday and Monday, but please go ahead and go to our Pueblo of Laguna website, or here on Facebook page, you can find the link to register. Registration is required just so that our crews can be prepared for your arrival. For COVID-19 vaccinations, you can contact our contact tracers, Audrey Kreger, Raylene Licario Day, or Tammy Herrera, and they can get you registered, or contact Tina Hohola and Lori Aragon for COVID-19 testing. Again, all this information is on our POL website. You can also find it on our social media page, Facebook, or you can give the EOC a call. And again, we thank you for sticking with us tonight. We hope you all have a good evening, and we will all see you all soon.